Hi Adrian, let me give you some insights about the problem with mocking. So I guess you might have something like this set up in your code. We have an app which has a child, some page, and some page is a separate component which is tightly coupled to the third-party model. That means it uses it directly, and it conditionally could render a greeting for the user when the user is authorized, or a button to start authorization. Whenever the button is clicked, we call some methods from the third-party model, then set somewhere the user in use state or in some other state management, and whenever user is available, we will conditionally render the welcome message. Now about the test, when the inner component is tightly coupled with the third-party model, you have no chance rather than mocking the third-party model, just like you posted on LinkedIn today. This is how your test might look like, I guess. So this test will fail whenever we actually try to replace the inner third-party model, for example, FB SDK. Even the behavior might not change, and therefore we don't want to have such a tests in our app because they waste developers' time to maintain them. We want tests that will fail only when the behavior of the software will change, not when the inner code will change, when we'll replace something, move files around, rename something, and so forth. We don't want the test fails in these cases. All right, how to fix this? How to actually invert the dependency in favor to reduce type coupling, to decouple that, to have loose coupling. It's named like that. So the simplest, I think, in React is using React context, because it allows you to store the values, and then your children, who are consumers of this context, could consume it based on the abstraction rather than implementation. All right, so let me start with. I will create a small file which will be called app.context, which is using React Context API to create a context. Then I will try to create another small file which will be an abstraction over my third-party library. So I import here directly a third-party library and return an object with methods I'm about to use. Now in the app component, my top component for example, I will import both newly created files like this, and I will try to wrap some page with context provider. I guess it should look something like this. Yep, where the value within a context will be stored in my object from authorization JS. So this one. Fine. Now what I do with some page JS6 file. So first of all, I drop the dependency. So this is gone. I don't rely anymore on third-party model. Instead, I will import our context plus React use context hook and employ it in a way or something like, let's say this. Const use context, I pass our context, and here I will have an authorization object, okay? And I can destructure authorization object if I want to do not change any further inner implementation, because authorization object has API method and login method. No changes are necessary anymore to this component. So they are using the same login and API, but the source from where they are using it is now React context. So this component is not anymore aware of any third-party model. It's only aware that context has this kind of API inside. That's good. This is decoupled component now. And now what about the test? Instead of having just mock here, which clearly says to the test that somewhere within the rendered component we are using FB SDK, third-party model, instead of that, I will create a fake. Let's create a fake which will be equals to the to this object. It also will fake API and login methods. Beyond that, I will import our context here, the one that we created at the very top, and you will guess already that I will wrap the rendering with the provider. Here we go, closing it, nesting it. Here, instead of real production implementation like I did in our app, I feed it with a fake. Now the test is decoupled from a third-party model too. So whatever changes underneath the hood, the code, your test won't break. These tests are not brittle, they are working good, and they will notify you and fail only when software behavior changes. I hope this helps. Have a good day.